Hey, what's happening, everyone? Pragmatic Addict here. I'm back with Jacob, of course. We are back in town. I do want to apologize for the fact that it's been a little bit later than I would normally put this video up. We just got back in town the other day. Slept in a little bit, so of course, right when we woke up, we watched the new Beavis and Butthead episode. So here's something I'm gonna do actually before I get into the review with Jacob. So I'm not gonna touch on this too long because I'm actually going to be doing another video later today if everything goes right. But I do want to thank a few viewers that regularly, comment on the channel, comment on the videos. Obviously, everyone, here, I appreciate everyone equally. Everyone is such a huge help. This goes for everybody, but I do want to give some shout outs to people that have just helped this kind of series, move a lot faster and, just make these videos more worth coming back to. So just getting through these shout outs: Alex Simpsons, Luis Santiago, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, Katie, 8-Bit Massacre, obviously, and Sean White. You guys are just always commenting on these episodes. Just always such a pleasure to talk to you. You guys are always in the mood to just, talk Beavis and Butthead with me. And again, all the viewers, I equally thank all of you. You guys are such a huge help. You guys are extremely supportive, especially for something like YouTube. It just makes it that much more, again, a reward of coming back to you. So thank you guys. Let's start off with the review. So episode 5-1 is called Tobacco Farmers. Now I'll say this, when I was reading the premises of each episode, like before I started the episode, I was like, so they try to plant tobacco like George Washington. And here's what I'll say, and this kind of goes for the entire episode. I was like, that seems more of a classic Beavis and Butthead thing. Like, for example, when they're trying to fly the kite in the original show with the key attached to it, and they end up getting zapped by lightning. I was like, okay, so yes, it obviously shows them in school. They're learning about George Washington from Van Driesen, and he's teaching them about how George Washington planted his own tobacco, whereas they see it, George Washington planted his own cigarettes. And obviously, exactly how you'd expect it to go, the first thing they mention is, wow, imagine how much money we can make.
I'm a history buff, and just watching this, it was just hilarious. Just seeing them trying to plant, sorry if I'm giving a spoiler, they're trying to plant cigarettes to grow tobacco trees, and I'm just...
Yeah, so basically how it ends up going is kind of how you'd exactly expect. And this is kind of like a callback to a more recent episode, the episode Pranks, where they obviously TP the house, and then they, try selling the TP back to the fucking house that they stole it from when they find out about the TP shortage, and then the family's just like, wow, nice boys, cleaning up our yard. Well, that's kind of how it goes in here, where they're collecting cigarette butts in a fucking trash bin, dragging along the sidewalk. Obviously, they're thinking these are cigarette seeds, so they can plant them, and everyone else is just thinking, wow, what nice boys, cleaning up the neighborhood. What I'll say about this episode is that it's kind of like how I felt earlier when I first got into it. And it's interesting because they're not necessarily anything strong or really anything special. They felt innocent enough in that classic Beavis and Butthead fashion. They felt unforced.
I have to say, the first one was better than, I can't remember which one it was better than last week.
Oh, last week. Last week we got the sewer episode.
I don't know if it was better than the sewer episode. I think it was better than the one after that one.
I can't even remember. Dude, this season has been so hit and miss.
It's just so, it's so,
What, the season?
Yeah, I mean, last season it kind of slapped, but this season it's just kind of...
And again, like, just these episodes alone, they're nothing special or strong. They're just fine for what they are. But, not to get too sidetracked, going further with the episode, so basically what ends up happening is while they're dragging these, cigarette butts in this trash bin, so here's the thing where it's like, I get it for what it was kind of referring to, but the overall reason, just the idea of it, I don't really expect it I mean, I guess to a degree, I could expect it from Beavis, but I'm just like, in actuality, these wouldn't taste good. But basically, we see Beavis just eating these cigarette butts one by one, and he can't stop. He's obviously, he's telling Butthead, I'm just kind of addicted to these seeds, and it's like, I get it, it's nicotine, it's cigarette. But they obviously don't taste good. Why would he be eating them in the first place? I mean, I get it that he thinks they're seeds. It's just stuff like that where it was like, okay, it's not necessarily strong, but I get it. Basically, with how this episode wraps up, here's what I'll say. Half of it I found cute, and I chuckled where they're basically in this actually beautiful garden, and so they trash it so that they can plant their seeds, and how it turns out is that the people that own this garden are coincidentally the people that we saw earlier that were saying how nice boys they were. And here's the thing, is like, while they're literally demolishing this garden and everyone is seeing them do it and even commenting on it, they're still like, wait a minute, they couldn't have done this. These were the nice boys picking up cigarettes. And it's like, dude, you're literally watching them demolish your garden. So it's like, I'll say this, on one end, Beavis and Butthead's end, obviously, I thought it was fine and cute, and I was going along with it. On the other end of these people, I don't know, it was just kind of like a weird wrap-up for me, but how it ends up closing out was kind of, again, it just gave me that classic Beavis and Butthead feel, which I'm not going to spoil it, but what I will say about this episode is that at the end, it was just something I could sit back and watch and just, again, accept it for what it was. It was just an innocent Beavis and Butthead episode, nothing too strong, nothing too necessary. It was just fine for what it was. And yeah, I thought Tobacco Farmers was a fine episode.
I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was just funny how it ends like it always does with Beavis and Butthead in their many ventures.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, it wrapped up the way I kind of saw it coming a mile away.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel about both these episodes. They're nothing necessarily strong or necessary, but they feel classic Beavis and Butthead enough. Now let's get into the second episode, Married, which is one that I've kind of been anticipating for a while. So basically what the premise is that old Beavis and Butthead, obviously, they get a parking ticket, and then they go down to the courthouse to settle it. Only when they get there, the line for the tickets is extremely long, and they obviously don't fucking read. So they see another opening for a room, which is marriage, which has nobody in line, so they're like, oh, well, let's go in that line. There's no one there. So what I will say with how this episode starts is that for someone who's not a big fan of old Beavis and Butthead, not only did I accept the introduction for what it was from these two, but even like, it's one of those intros that it kind of plays into a bigger scenario by the end of the episode. So basically, old Beavis and Butthead are just being, Beavis and Butthead creep fashion, and they, end up freaking out a girl. They're like, hey, we should go to Burger World with us, and they're, just being Beavis and Butthead to her, and basically she ends up splashing a drink in their face and walking off. Now this just seems, as expected for what it is. You don't think that it's going to lead anywhere, but it ends up being a bigger plot line in the end of the episode. But then they turn their attention to, I guess their car. Yes, they have a fucking car, and I'm just like, how the fuck did they get a license? But they end up turning their attention to the car that is getting towed away, where the officer says, yeah, you have to come down to the courthouse and pay a fine. So they end up going down to the courthouse, like I said, see the line that is for the tickets, and it's extremely long, and then it pans over to another line that's a little bit shorter, and then it pans off to another room that says marriages on it.
It was just funny seeing them get married. It's kind of like, it's just kind of like one of those things where you thought they did it earlier, because in the original series, they actually acted like they were getting married in one episode, because like...
Well, and there's so many, like, dream references and stuff, and even, like, episodes where they're at weddings and shit. So it was fun. It was funny to get this kind of light on the marriage subject.
Yeah, and it's just kind of... There is a lot to this episode that kept me laughing. It was a pretty good one. Yeah,
so basically what ends up happening is once they get into the marriage room, they see a woman at the desk. Because it's a marriage room, she's calling them hot bachelors, where Butthead thinks, wow, she wants to have a three-way with us. So coincidentally, he just asks her straight up, will you marry us? And she's like, yes, I will. Because she in the system, that's her job, is to marry people, make them official. Ha ha ha. So basically, Bud asks her if she will marry them, and she says yes. Or Bud thinks, wow, we're married to this woman now. And so how it wraps up from there is once they leave, going back to the beginning of the episode, they see that girl that thought they were creeps because they were just harassing her and shit. Well, she overhears them talking about the fact that they've been married, and she looks at Beavis and Bud, and she's like, wait, you guys are married? And they're like, yeah, we just got married. And so she's like, oh, well, maybe I misjudged you. I feel really bad. Here, I'll tell you what. I'll take you on that offer to Burger World. It'll be my treat, where they go there with her thinking that, wow, ever since we got married, all these chicks want us now. But before I end up getting to the end of the episode, I do want to talk about the cutaway in this episode. Where here's what I'll say. It's nothing that I ever see myself asking for, but I do think that this cutaway was better. I think that the commentary and just the subject of the cutaway itself kind of worked for this, older age of Beavis and Butthead. Obviously, old Beavis and Butthead cutaways, I do think that they have that potential where it's like, obviously, they're in a different mindset. They've had more experiences than, their teenage selves. So I feel like the potential is there, but I just don't find it funny. But I did want to just talk about that really quickly because I know I didn't talk about the cutaway in the past episode. But how this episode ends up wrapping up, here's what I'll say. There's a lot that goes into this ending. I will say this in saying that, I do feel like the overall running gag, like the joke of this episode, I do feel like they stretch it on a little bit too long, where it's like the actual butt of the actual fucking episode, and it's like, okay, I get it that, this is only like a 10-minute episode, that this is a funny premise, you want to see all the different reactions and all the different routes that could go down with this scenario, but it just felt like the joke is just stretching out a little bit too long. But what I will say is that there is a bit to take away from this ending, and the final line from Butthead is just one of those situations where I'm like, that's me. But here's what I will say is that, again, like the past episode, I thought I accepted it for what it was. It's nothing strong or special. It's just, it feels unforced in that Beavis and Butthead fashion. And yeah, I'm feeling a positive review for this one as well.
I'm not gonna lie, this episode kept me laughing. There was not a moment where I wasn't laughing. This is just like one of those episodes where you're not gonna control yourself from not laughing unless it's the cutaway stuff, because like that stuff was but,
yeah, they weren't as strong in this one.
But like this episode was just all over the place with the funny. I would rate it a 6.9.
Wow, you really like this one. This is one of your favorites of the season so far, man.
Yeah. Beavis and Butthead, if they heard my rating, they would probably go, he said 6.9.
But yes, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you guys all for sticking around with us for this one. It's great to be back home again. It's great to be talking about more Beavis and Butthead. And again, like I was saying earlier, I do have another video coming later on, a kind of a special video. But with all that being said, guys, we will see you very soon. Make sure you check out Jacob's channel at JTJ's Reviews. I will have a link for it in the description. He does a lot of breakdown videos. Also, check out 8-Bit Massacre's channel. He does some great Beavis and Butthead reactions. But yes, guys, with all that being said, we'll see you in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching.